Nicky, welcome to the Happy Engineer podcast, man. Glad you're here.
Zach, it's an honor to be here. God bless you, and thank you for having me on.
It's a privilege. It's a pleasure. So, Nicky, a lot of times on this show, we focus on the career side of engineering. Many of us are in that W-2 world, looking to get that next promotion, but it's not uncommon. And my journey is one example of this, where you've got the entrepreneurial itch. And you are a wizard, a genius, the man when it comes to building, growing businesses. You've got a ton of experience in this area. And I want to ask that question with you today. What does it take for an engineering leader to build their first $1 million business?
What a brilliant question, man.
Yeah. I want you to just share with us, first of all, is now an okay time for an engineering leader to think about launching into their first business?
The short answer is yes. It is. It's a great time.
What's the long answer?
The long answer is it's probably better if they did it 10 years ago. But,
okay, fair enough.
There's an ancient Buddhist proverb that goes, when's the best time to plant a fruit tree? Best time is 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
So
true.
if you'd started your business 10 years ago, you probably already have $1 million a year business, and you'd be well on your way to moving forward. And there's a lot of reasons people don't start their businesses. One of them is analysis paralysis, procrastination disease.
Yeah.
And if you have had an inkling that you want to be an entrepreneur, don't wait, don't delay, begin now, be decisive. There are 4 qualities that allow anyone to achieve extreme success in entrepreneurship. The first quality is decisiveness.
Okay.
So the word decide comes from a Latin word, right? Side. I mean, if you look the root of it, side, right? They're all about killing things off. Homicide, suicide, regicide, patricide, decide. Decide is to kill off the alternative. The first thing you want to do is decide you're going to be an entrepreneur and you're going to be successful, and kill off the alternative. Don't leave yourself a back door. That's super, super, super important. Decisiveness is a key quality of the successful, right?
Nicky, before you go on to the other 3, I have to jump in because you just described me to a T. My entrepreneurial journey was slow to begin because of overanalysis. I want to see if you have a thought about this, because I think engineers like me feel this way a lot. I know I want to be an entrepreneur, but I don't know exactly what I want to do or what business is the right business to start. And we get stuck in that place. So I made the decision, but it's not a real decision, right? But I told myself I want to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't act because I didn't know what to do. What would you coach me, if you could go back in time to Zach White when he was stuck in that place? What would you say to me in that spot?
Find a mentor who's helped other people start businesses. Hire that mentor with a lot of urgency. Go to work until you got it figured out. Because it's an engineering problem, if as it were.
Yeah.
Right? How do I build this bridge? Well, you don't sit there and go, well, I don't know how to, so I guess I'm not going to do anything. You go find a person who's built bridges before, and you get the damn thing built, right?
Yeah.
And a business is a bridge from your current circumstances to the great future circumstances you're looking to create.
Ooh, say that again. That's a really powerful statement.
A business is a bridge from your current circumstances to the great future circumstances that you're wanting to create.
Oof. Okay. We may circle back to that quote later in the chat after we've unpacked this. I interrupted your 4 qualities with decisiveness because I think it's so important. Most engineers don't get off the ground because they lack the courage to decide, I'm going to do this. And so I don't know if there's anything else you want to hit on that before we move on to number 2. Okay, keep going.
Napoleon Hill is the best-selling personal development author of all time. Think and Grow Rich is the best-selling personal development book of all time. It is estimated that 75 million copies of that book have been sold.
Wow.
You think about that. That's a lot. Right?
Yeah.
But what you may not know about Napoleon Hill is that when he was a young man, he was a newspaper journalist. And he was actually sent by his editor to interview the then richest man in the world, Andrew Carnegie. And Andrew Carnegie was the founder of US Steel, used lots of engineering and making steel back in
Yeah.
those days and today too. And the interview went extremely well. At the end of their time together, Mr. Carnegie had taken a shine to young Mr. Hill, and he said, Mr. Hill, how would you like to spend the weekend at my estate so we can continue our discussion? Now, I don't know about you, Zach, but if the richest man in the world asked me if I wanted to spend the weekend at his estate, the only reason I'd say no is if I had important things to do with my kids. And other than that, the answer would be hell yeah. Right? I mean, that's so. Of course, he said yes, and they spent the weekend having detailed conversations.
Yeah, no brainer.
And at the end of their time together, Andrew Carnegie said, Mr. Hill, I have a proposition for you. How would you like to spend the next 20 years of your life researching and writing about my philosophy of success and bringing it to the world? I will not pay you a stipend to do this. But what I will do is I will help you by giving you my experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I will also give you letters of introduction to the 500 most successful men and women in these United States. Now, you got to remember the time. That was a time where love of America and possibility was present among every segment of the population, including the most successful people. You didn't have a bunch of billionaires like George Soros who were trying to destroy the country, right? So he said, in 31 seconds, he said yes. And the rest is history. He went out, he did the work and wrote the books and became famous. And then he met with Andrew Carnegie one last time before the great man passed. At that meeting, Andrew Carnegie congratulated him on all his success and said, but you should know that what I had done is I had actually had a watch with a second hand under the table, and I'd given you 60 seconds to make up your mind. And if you hadn't made up your mind in 60 seconds, what I was going to do was withdraw the offer. And Napoleon Hill goes, oh, why? Thank God I said yes in less than 60 seconds, right? He said, well, you've been studying my philosophy of success. Why, indeed, would you say I was going to withdraw the offer? And he said, you're right. Successful people are decisive. They gather the facts. And once they have the facts, they make a decision right away. Right away. They don't dilly or dally. And he said, I had approached 4 of the most eminent educators in these United States and asked them if they would take on this task. And they all said, I need to get back to you. I need to research this for myself. I need to do some consulting and analysis. And he said, that's when I knew they were the wrong people.
I love that story, Nicky. I love that story. That's so good. And I've never heard that part of the story. I mean, I knew all about how Napoleon Hill and Andrew Carnegie got connected in the first place, and I've studied some of that biography of his life, but that piece is new to me. And I'll be honest, Nicky, I'm convicted about that even right now with the success that I've had in entrepreneurship, that I still fall into my old engineering pattern of overthinking more than I would like to. And I know for a fact that my clients who are new to this type of conversation really struggle with it. And so maybe if you were going to give us one, call it an exercise or a mindset or a way to begin strengthening decisiveness or the courage to be decisive, what's the way to improve that muscle? How do we develop that skill?
Say yes to the next 20 requests that are made of you, regardless of what they are. Immediately. Don't think. Say yes and follow through.
Ooh, just
even if you don't want to do it, just say
decisions.
Yes. I'm in.
Okay. Yeah. There's a challenge.
And then practice saying no.
Yeah, then flip it. Do a no challenge for the next 20. Okay. No, I love that. I love that. And ironically, Nicky, one of the things that we do in our coaching program for engineering leaders is a 24-hour no challenge where you say no to every request that comes your way. But I also like doing it as a yes. Just say, hey, practice making quick decisions. Practice making
Practice
quick
making quick
decisions.
decisions.
It's
You know
awesome.
what? I'm actually going to write this down because there's a client of mine who I'm going to do this 20 yes thing to. Practice making quick decisions. Practice making quick decisions. Yeah, that's good. All right. Thank you for boiling it down to its essentials. All right, great. So the second quality is commitment.
Ooh,
You cannot go, I'm going to try this business thing out for a week, a month, 2 months, 3 months, a year. And if it works, great. If not, I'm going to quit. That's a foot out the back door.
yes.
You got to be in it to win it. You've got to be willing to be bad before they're good. You got to be willing to say, I'm a great engineer, but I suck at business. I suck
Yes.
at business. Suck is a technical term. It's not a swear word. It's a technical term.
That is right.
And the average engineer is a great engineer. Do you agree?
Oh, no question. And I could speak. We've talked
engineer,
to thousands
skilled,
of engineers. Yeah.
educated, unreal skilled as a tradesman or a technician. Agreed?
Yes. Yes.
But they are a terrible, terrible businessman or businesswoman.
Yep.
Terrible. They don't understand sales and marketing. They don't understand numbers and finances, reading balance sheets and cash flow statements and payroll. They don't understand hiring and firing. That is all hieroglyphics to them. You understand?
Yeah, and just to clarify the term technician in that sentence, because I know the engineer 10 years ago, Zach, would have objected to that. Like, I'm not a technician. I've got my engineering degree because of the world of being in that industry. But thinking about Michael Gerber's work in eMyth, the difference between entrepreneurs, managers, and technicians, meaning the people who do the work, or Tony Robbins would call it the artist, the one who's actually driving the technical work. And so this is a hard truth to face, Nicky. I'm a great technician, but I am not yet a business owner or entrepreneur. I don't know how to do that. And to just admit that I suck at it is a good first step. Yeah.
And you've got to be willing to be a disaster before you can be a master.
Ooh, yep. That's a good modern day remix of the old Zig Ziglar quote that I have on my wall, that anything worth doing well is worth doing poorly, because you don't get to being great at something without sucking at it first. So commitment, what does a duration, if we're talking time, what's a minimum duration of commitment that you would tell a new entrepreneur? Like, if you're not in it for X time, or is it nothing to do with time? How would you approach that?
What I say when we work with people, our ideal clients are people that are under $250,000 a year, like in the entrepreneur, solopreneur consultant space.
Right.
I have a second group of ideal clients who are kind of like 2.5 million to 20 million. But in this space, they're in the golden handcuff zone. The golden handcuff zone is between $60,000 and $250,000 a year in income. Okay. It's good money, enough to pay your bills and maybe then some. It's not wonderful money. Yes. It is not life-changing, transformational money. Can I work with someone who makes less than 60 grand and help them? Yeah. Can I work with someone who's making $500,000 or $1 million or $2 million and double their income? Yeah, I can. And in fact, with those other folks, if they're at that higher amount of money, it's easier to get them to double, triple, quadruple when they work with someone like me, just because they've got assets that I know how to help them leverage that they may not be well aware of. But those folks in the 60 to 250K, like if you're making $1 million a year, Zach, and I take you to 2.5 million, you'll be happy. But is it life transformational? Probably not. Right? It's really good. It's excellent. Like, wonderful. 2.5 times my money. But is there a whole lot more that you would do for your family with that money? Probably not. That's at the stage where you're making the kind of money that I would say is already allowing you to pretty much do whatever you want. That kind of money, 2.5 million, is legacy money. It's money for your kids. It's money to set up the favorite charities for scripture and mission stuff and all that stuff. That's what that's all about. It's not transformational money. For a guy or a gal making a 60K to $250,000, When I get them to a 500,000 or $1 million, I've transformed their whole
Yeah,
existence.
absolutely.
Their entire
Absolutely.
life has gone forward. So if you're in that zone, I tell people I'm confident because we have a track record that I can take a committed individual from wherever in that zone to 1 million to 2.5 million inside of 3 years. I've got example after example. There's a fellow Christian who was a realtor and became a coach, and he worked with me for 2+ years. Great man. His name's Colt, right? Great first name, Colt.
Yeah,
Like
love that.
the revolver, right? The Colt revolver. So Colt just called me and said, you know how you've been bugging me to be like a Kingdom business coach and to do a mastermind for Kingdom business owners? He said, out of that, like 11 months of like just trying to get that going, one of the folks in there introduced me to his business partner who just hired me. I'm the perfect coach for him. Just signed a $500,000 a year contract with those folks. One client. You think about that. That's like transformation. He did it in under 3 years. So that's awesome. That's what I promise people and I tell people. But you got to commit. There's no back door. There's no I'm going to quit in 5 years. This is my horizon. This is my timeline. You got to do it. That's what commitment's all about. Now, that's a good segue to the third quality, which is coachable. You got to have the right coaches. You got to be coachable. You cannot go into this and go, I'm somebody who is going to figure this out by myself. If you were going to figure it out on your own, you would have already done it. You need the coaches and the mentors. One of my clients back when I used to be a personal fitness coach was Robin Sharma, who wrote The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. Are you familiar with Robin and his work?
Yes.
So Robin was my client. He lives in my city.
Oh,
I
awesome.
coached him. And I did a couple of his programs too. He told me about him and it was great. Now, here's the beauty of Robin Sharma, what he taught me about being coachable. He said to me one day, and he said, Nicky, are you looking to grow your business? Well, I was like making him sweat. And I go, yeah, of course. He said, do you know what's the fastest way to grow your business? I said, no, tell me. He said, if this year you want to at least double your income, triple your investment in personal and professional development. I'm going to say that again. If you want to double your income, triple your investment in personal and professional development. You have to hire the coaches and mentors. You have to join the peer groups. You have to do the courses and the programs. And you have to attend the conferences. And you've got to double and triple down on that. I listened to him and I over doubled my income. And I would say this to your clients: hire the coaches and listen to them. Hire the coaches and listen to them. Listen to Zach. And if you're in the golden handcuff zone, whether you're working for yourself or you're still in the JOB world,
yes,
then you owe it to yourself to get a mentor and a coach to get you out of it. Now, I wrote a book, if you don't mind me talking about this book for a minute. It's called The Thought Leader's Journey, A Fable of Life. It's written as a fable, kind of like Og Mandino's legendary books and Robin Sharma's book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. It is the story of a young man working for an IT firm in a sales capacity who wants to start his own business but is too scared. And there are 15 chapters in the books, and it goes into all the things you need to do in order to get out of your JOB and start your business.
Yeah.
It's just a blueprint. And
I love that.
It's available on Amazon. Now,
we'll put the link directly to the book, in the show notes, and I definitely encourage everybody to go grab a copy of the work. I've loved.
So that'll help get you to the point where you're going to do it, but you've got to hire the coaches and the mentors and all of that stuff. You got to have a blueprint, and you got to be a coachable individual.
Yes.
And then there's the fourth one. And this
hold on. Let me ask you a question here. We got to hold number 4, number of support, but this is really interesting. So coachable. Obviously, I'm a coach, Nicky. I'm passionate about this. And one of the requirements when I'm talking to potential clients is really getting clear with them. Like, hey, if you want results working with us, you have to bring that coachable spirit. But I'll just speak for myself. As an engineer, we take so much pride in our intelligence. And it takes a high level of intelligence to earn an engineering degree and perform as an engineer. I mean, it is a tough occupation. This is, incredibly demanding work. It's, thought leadership journey is a great word. Like every single engineer I talk to in some way in their own right is a thought leader just to get to that space. But the intelligence breeds an ego and a lone wolf mentality that I can always figure it out if I just keep studying, keep learning, keep reading, keep, listening to podcasts like this. If I just listen to Zach and Nicky long enough for free, I'm going to figure all this out. And there's a resistance to hiring that coach, hiring that mentor. To your point, truly investing in yourself. And so I'm just curious from your experience, Nicky, if you were talking again to the ego in Zach White, what would you say, or what questions would you challenge me back with to that mentality that I can always just figure it out?
It's a double-edged sword. Your greatest strength is also your greatest weakness. And if you're a very bright and intelligent person, that mentality will prevent you from working together in team and winning. Because I'll tell you something, the lone wolf mentality, the rugged individualist, it's lovely for movies and Marlboro ads. It's not true in real life.
Yeah.
People win in teams. So you may even look at an individual in a solo sport, right? Like a UFC fighter or, a marathon runner or a sprinter. They have got a massive team. Like my book, Finish Line Thinking, How to Think and Win Like a Champion. The foreword was written by a buddy of mine who's an Olympic gold medalist. And my lady is a 3-time Guinness World Record holder for running 12 hours on a treadmill. 3 times, set 3 world records, right? They have 30-person teams that support them in being able to go out there and do that on their own. There's nutrition coaches, there's training coaches, there's running coaches, there's stretching coaches, there's mindset coaches, there's sponsors. Are you freaking kidding me? This lone wolf, I'm smart enough to figure it out mentality will set you back 10 years. Now, do you want to start making $1 million a year within 3 years, or do you want it to take you 10 years? Because if you start making $1 million a year in 2025 versus 2033, that's 8 years at $1 million versus 8 years at 150, 200,000.
Yeah.
That's you're putting 6, 7, 8 million on the table. And if you're intelligent, you got to be intelligent enough from a business point of view to understand that anything that gives you a shortcut, you need to take it. And the ego, I do men's work as well. I run a men's podcast and a men's program.
Yes.
And we say that a man's ego is a good thing up to a point, because it's your ego that's going to give you the belief that you can go out there and get things done. You need your ego. Mm-hmm. But you got to be careful that your ego doesn't cut you down. Let's just say, Zach, you're making, I don't know how much you make, but let's say you make $1 million a year, and you just said, in your mind, you said, I want to make 5 million. I want to make 5 million. I can figure this out on my own. Who is this guy? I don't need to talk to him. I'll read all his books. I'll listen to 10 of his best podcast episodes. I'll take really detailed notes. I'll get it done. And I'm sure you're smart enough to read all the books, take good notes, develop a program. I'm sure you're smart enough to do it. But here's the first thing that's going to happen. You're going to do the wrong thing in the right thing in the wrong order, and it's going to bite you in the butt. And because you don't have the experience to understand that you did that, you're not going to know what went wrong. You're going to go, oh, well, this guy's an idiot. What he said doesn't work. No, that wasn't what happened. And then you're going to try something else. And you're going to fumble around until you finally figure it out. But the fumbling around will waste a lot of your time, will create a lot of frustration in your cycles, could put pressure on you financially, could put pressure on your relationship, because money and sex are the 2 biggest things couples fight about, right? And money's way ahead of sex. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
Like by a country mile. And it'll also put stress on you. You'll stay up in bed, staying awake at night, because you're a smart person and you should have figured it out right now. And your mind's going to be racing at 1 million miles a minute. And your health's going to suffer. And really, was that really smart?
Yep.
Be coachable, hire coaches and mentors.
This is so
Got to do it. It's a no-brainer. If you're an intelligent person, as you say, engineers are intelligent, this is a no-brainer. This is as simple as making sure you rivet in the arch at the bridge. This is not one of those things there's an argument over, right?
Yeah. No, I would agree. And especially on the other side of results, when you've done this, you've made those investments and you've seen the return and how incredible it is, not just for the financial rewards, but the quality of your life and the experience and the journey and the number of struggles you dodge along the way because you've had that mentor. And, a lot of my clients, Nicky, they really struggle with making their investment into working with us. And then they find out that I'm paying 10x what they pay me to pay my coaches because I want to get to that next level too. It's like, it absolutely matters to continue to make those investments. So, all right. Decisiveness, commitment, which, by the way, engineers, I'm just going to say this. We like to say, well, I'm just being wise and I'm evaluating my risks and I have a risk management plan. I'll just tell you, my risk management plan was a fancy way to say I wasn't committed, Nicky. That was my story. It was a successful person's language for I'm not yet committed. I'm working on risk mitigation. So you said number 4 is the most important one. Take us to number 4.
Resourcefulness. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories in this regard. When Tony Robbins was getting started in business, he was just 17 years old. He wanted to go work for Jim Rohn. And to work for Jim Rohn, the first thing he had to do was purchase Jim Rohn's home tape program, which back then was $1,200. This was in the 70s. So tenfold the price now, like $12,000 for a 17-year-old kid who's basically broke, right?
Yes, I love this.
So Tony was 17 and he had an ill-fitting suit. He said the pant legs were too short. And what he did was he put on his ill-fitting suit and he knocked on 200 doors of businesses in his area. And he just said, hello, my name's Tony Robbins, and I'm 17 years old. I'm looking to get started in business, and I want to know, will you invest in me? Because I will pay you back X dollars if you do. That was his pitch. And he didn't have the money, and he wanted to work with Jim Rohn, and he had to come up with this $1,200. And he knocked on 200 doors, and 198 of them said no. But 2 of them said yes, and they each gave him, I don't know, half the money or whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
And he took that money, he invested with Jim Rohn, and the rest is history. And Tony comes out and he says, it doesn't matter what your resources are right now. What matters is how resourceful can you be? Because if you're resourceful, you'll find a way to come up with the resources. The resources are just an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you a story from my life. Around 9-10 years ago, I was going through a divorce. My then wife, she let me know she didn't want to be with me. I was completely blindsided. Maybe I shouldn't have been, but I was. I went into a spiral. I ended up sleeping on my mother's couch. I was a grown man with 2 sons. I mean, you think about this, sleeping on his mother's couch. I went to a conference. I saw a man do a talk. It spoke to me, touched my heart. At the end of the talk, I walked over to him and I introduced myself. And I told him a bit about my story. And I finally said to him, I think I need to hire you. And he said, okay. He said, but you need to understand that my minimum fee is $5,000. And you'll get 5 hours of my coaching for that. And I need to be paid upfront in advance. I offer no guarantees and no refunds. You still want to do it? And I was like, I had not worked in months. I had nowhere near that kind of money. And I told him that. And he said to me, I had a feeling that was the case. He said, so I'm going to give you some free coaching. I'm like, free coaching? Man, this is great. Give it to me. Free coaching.
Yeah.
Right? He said, it really doesn't matter how much money you have. And I just said, it doesn't. I thought you wanted $5,000. I thought that was all that mattered, is how much money that I had. Right? He said, no, it doesn't. Those are just your resources. What matters is, how bad do you want change? He said, you're a grown man. You're going through a divorce. You're not seeing your kids much. And you're sleeping on your mother's couch. Your business went from 6 figures to barely anything. How much longer are you willing to tolerate this? Zach, I did not like what this man said to me. His name was Bill.
Yeah.
In fact, it boiled my blood, but he was right. He was right. So I said to him, okay, give me a couple days. Let's make an appointment for me to come see you in a couple days at your office. And he said, okay. So I was at the time a personal fitness coach. And what I did was I picked up the phone. I made a couple of calls with a lot of urgency to a couple of individuals who I'd been in conversation with who had not made a decision. They were hanging on, right? Here's how the conversations went. I said, hey, I got good news for you. You're fat and you need to lose weight. I'm broke and I need money. I'm going to give you the deal of the century, half price. But here's the catch. You need to say yes now and you need to pay me by the end of this call. What's it going to be, win or out? And I guess I must have been persuasive because they both gave me $1,000 each. So my $2,000 program became $1,000. I was so proud of myself. I took that $2,000. I went into the meeting with the bill and I just plunked it down on the table. I go, here you go. He looks at the money. He looks at me and he goes,
That's only $2,000.
That's just two. I said 5. And I looked at him and I said, oh God.
You kidding me?
Like just my proud, excited demeanor just went, oh God. But I looked at him and I go, Bill, besides me, how many people have you given this little speech to? And he looked at me and goes, over the years? Yeah, over the years. Maybe 30, 40. I'm like, okay, 30, 40. Good. And then I said to him, besides me, who else came back with any money? And he looked at me and he smirked and he said, oh, you're the first. I said, I'm the first. And he goes, yeah. I said, take my money. We'll sign a contract whereby I'll give you the rest. Okay. Within 30, 60 days, whatever the case may be. And he said, okay. And so we did that.
Very cool.
I paid him off early.
Great story.
And I made $100,000 in the next 6 months.
Woo, there it is. Nicky, I love that.
Resourcefulness, my friend.
Resourcefulness, number 4, top thing. And I'll just double down. And yeah, we've been talking today in the context of entrepreneurship and business, but even if your goal, your aspiration is to stay in the JOB, the W-2 world, it's the same. And I can tell you, sometimes you just don't see the cage that you're in around the belief that you have a lack of resources. And engineers, Nicky, it's almost as if we're bred to think this way because you come out of college, you get that first job, and what do they say? Well, here's the budget, you can't change it. Here's the schedule, you can't change it. And you get put into these worlds of limited resources, and your job is to go figure out how to best manage all the limitations to the best possible outcome. And engineers, we get programmed into that kind of thinking. And I think this is probably the most important message of our conversation for everybody to hear, because I must be willing to ask a bigger question and say, yeah, that's the current cap on a particular resource, but how will I become the resourceful person who solves that problem anyway? I just had a conversation 2 days ago, Nicky, with an engineering leader who's been unemployed since July. It's December of 2022, December 7th, 2022, we're talking right now. July 2022, this leader got furloughed because of economic reasons. There was not for performance. So in their mind, they're still a top talent, but they got let go because the economy was slumping. Okay, well, since July, it took them 2 months to regroup and get back into the job market, which was a little bit of a first red flag to me. Then application after application after application, no progress, not getting anywhere in the interviews, not getting great feedback as to why not. And this downward spiral has begun of self-doubt and fear and concern, and the bank account is going down, unemployment timeline is running out. And we get to this point of the conversation and realizing there's a $3,000 or $4,000 a week loss every week they're not employed, right? This is a highly paid professional who's unemployed. So we're talking, you literally are burning hundreds out the window of your car, right? Like by not being employed. And this individual, looking down the barrel of a solution to that problem, said, I don't have the cash to invest in myself right now to get help on this situation. a few $1,000s.
Okay.
And it's like, wow, this barrier to belief that I can actually, for one, create a return on investment in myself, back to commitment and coachability. But also, like, you're losing 3-4 grand a week by not being employed. If we could just get you a job 1 week faster than you would have gotten on your own, it's going to be a positive ROI. And it's just that mindset is so backward for engineering leaders. So I love this challenge that you're giving us, and it's huge. It's huge. So we've got these 4 qualities, and we started the whole conversation by saying anybody who's willing to live into these 4 things fully can and will, with the right coaching and support and system here, get to $1 million business in 3 years. Really quick, Nicky, tell us, where does your conviction, 3 years or less? Yeah, tell us a little about where your conviction in that statement really comes from.
I'm glad you used that word, conviction, because I think the most important thing any client is looking for from you is conviction. They're coming to see you because they lack conviction that they have a solution to solve the problem. So you must convey conviction. Your client needs you to convey conviction. So I understand that it's my job to convey conviction, but the good Lord has blessed me with being able to be of service to dozens upon dozens of people whose lives have been completely turned around. And I'd like to tell you a story, kind of a wrap-up story, if I may.
Perfect.
A few years ago, I was introduced to a woman who had been the country director for Canada for one of the world's largest personal development organizations. They've been around since the late 1960s. She brought on a man to help her run the company in Canada, who she thought was very talented. And she brought him on to help grow the company. This situation is not dissimilar to Steve Jobs in the 80s when he brought on John Scully to help him run Apple.
Okay.
Just like Steve and John, they got along great at first and did great things together. But just like Steve and John, eventually their visions of the future diverged. And just like Steve and John, she was exited from her own company. Think about this. How can you get kicked out of your own company?
That's the worst. That's the worst.
So she went into a space of being lost, bereft, 18 months, unsure of what was next. When she met us, we could see this was a good human being. We poured into her. We loved on her. We helped her get clear on a message, because that's one thing that was missing. She had no clarity on her message. Okay. And because of that lack of clarity, she was unable to see what she could do. So we helped her get clear that what she was really good at helping people deal with burnout. And she was going to work with CEOs, founder owners of $10 million plus companies who are burnt out. And her message was, we're going to turn that burnout around. You're going to overcome it. In her first month, she did $10,000 in profit. In her second month, she did $12,000. In her third month, she did $18,000. But in her fourth month, Zach, she did $62,200. We have a ladder based on martial arts belt levels, from white belt to black belt, and then second, third, fourth, fifth dan and above. Every $10,000 a month in income is another belt level. So $60,000 is the first level of black belt, first dan. Big deal. She was the first woman to do that inside of our work. So we were so pleased. She lives in Ottawa, and I live in Toronto in Canada. That's a 5-hour drive. My oldest son plays soccer, or the real football, because it's actually played with your feet, right? He had a tournament in Ottawa, and she lives in Ottawa, and she has a son his age. I called her up and I go, hey, we're coming to Ottawa for this tournament. How would you like to bring your son, watch a game? Let's grab some lunch together. It'd be fun, right? And good relationship building exercise on my end, I thought, as well. So we did that. It was lovely. We all had a great time. And then my boy and I drove back to Toronto, and she stayed back home with her son. Just a few weeks later, we had one of our quarterly workshops. It's called the Branded Thought Leader Immersion Workshop. It's a mouthful, but basically it's where we show coaches and consultants how they can add that 1 to 2 zeros to their annual income, how they can be that 7-figure business person. The way it works is we have some people that are a part of our ongoing year-long mastermind, and this workshop is the entree into our work. People sign up for this, and then if they want to continue with us, they participate in the mastermind. And they're high ticket programs, both of them, right? We had about 8 new prospects in the room. And we were at the point in the immersion where we take about an hour to talk to people about how we work with them and how they can continue to work with us. And the way I do it is I ask our members to share their experience. So the time came for me to say, who'd like to share? And I did that. Who'd like to share? So this lady, I'm going to call her Julie. That's not a real name, but I'm going to call her Julie. Julie bounds on stage before I have a chance, Zach, to even call on anybody. And goes, meet. And I'm like, okay, cool.
She's got something to
So
say.
she looks around the room and she starts to bawl, like cry, like just rivers of tears. We get her a tissue, and like any good red-blooded man, when I see a crying woman, I panic inside. The first place I go to is, what did I do? Right?
Sure.
What did I do? So she but I'm maintaining a placid, calm exterior and a look of concern, you know. And she looks at me, and between her tears and her sobs says, Nicky, you didn't know this, but when you and your little son came to visit me, and my little son, my little boy, in that way little boys do, got excited and said, Mommy, who are we going to go meet? And she says, oh, sweetheart, we're going to go meet Nicky Billou and his son. And she said, all of a sudden, my sweet little boy became very serious and very quiet. And what he said to me was, oh, Mommy, are we going to get to meet the man who saved our family? I start to cry. Zach, I don't cry in public. I'm old school. I don't cry in public. But I cried. She tells me between her tears, we hugged. Nicky, I didn't tell you this when I came to see you, but I had not paid our mortgage in months. The bank was about to foreclose on our home. We were about to lose our home. And my husband and I were fighting every day like cats and dogs in front of our 3 small children. It looked like we were going to break up. I was about to lose my precious family. The work we did together, how I turned my business around, literally helped us save our family. You saved our family.
Amazing.
She hugged me. She kissed me on the cheek, walked off the stage. Now, I had no idea this was going on. None. She had not yet felt comfortable enough to tell me. And what hit me in that moment, Zach, is I'll help anybody who wants to be helped and comes across my path. But I ask God, please bring me people that really need my help and need your help through me, because I want to help see these types of transformations. And just as kind of the postscript, when we handed out the registration forms, usually, you know, some people sign up, some people don't. Some people, you have to have a persuasion conversation with them, right? Everyone signed up instantly. That little boy is the best salesman I've ever had in my life. My God.
I love it. Well, Nicky, I really appreciate you sharing that. It's not just the heart and the energy of it, but also the reality that anybody who's has a heart and a vision to go do that can do it. An engineer has no excuse. There's no gap in capability. You are enough. You can do it. It's just, will you have the courage to step up, embody these 4 qualities, and then get the help that you need? And, you know, you can have that transformation story as well, no matter where you're starting from. But so good. Nicky, where can people get connected with you, your work? Of course, we'll link up all this in the show notes and your books there, but just so people can hear it if they're running or driving or something, where can they find more and get plugged in with Nicky Billou?
Look, if you enter my name in any search engine, you can find me pretty easily on Amazon for the books and the podcasts. They're all listed there, Nicky Billou on Amazon. But if you're a business owner who is hurting and wants to figure out why you're stuck, let's jump on a call. Just go to eCircleacademy.com/appointment. The call's free. It's a bona fide coaching call that is really full of meat. We're going to ask a lot of good questions about where you're at, where you want to get to, and what really is getting in the way. And what's the consequence of it getting in the way to you in your life? And I'll provide you with a blueprint on how you
Love
can get
that.
out of it. And this is a good time to have that conversation. Remember, like you asked at the beginning, when's the best time
That's
to
right.
start a business? Well, the best time to start a business is 10 years ago, but the second best time is today. The best
There it
time to
is.
fix your problems in your business is a while ago, but the second best time is today.
There you go. I love it. Nicky, thank you so much for this. And as we wrap up, we've covered a lot of really important things for the engineer mind to really get clear on. And I know for myself that all four of these qualities are things I'm still sharpening and developing. But one of the things that's common between great coaching and leadership that you do and great engineering at any level is that questions lead and answers follow. We're here today because we want better answers in life and in business. So, what would you leave that engineering leader who wants to pursue that next level? What's the question that you would lead them with?
Is the life you're leading today, the career, the business that you have today, what you always dreamed of? If it is, fantastic. If it's not, how much longer are you willing to tolerate it being at this level versus the level you wanted at?
Hmm. How much longer? Nicky, thank you so much for your generosity today. I just want to acknowledge you for the incredible work that you're doing, the lives that you're transforming, the businesses that you're transforming and growing through your experience and your energy. It's absolutely a pleasure to have connected with you. And thank you so much for sharing that with me and the happy engineers out there.
Zach, brother, God bless you. Thanks for having me on the show. It's an honor to be here. I never take it for granted that someone allows me to come into their space and share. It's a privilege. So thank you.
You're welcome. Until next time.
Hello, my friend. Zach White here again, and I wanted to let you know that's all we've got for this episode of the Happy Engineer podcast. Thank you so much for investing your time with me today. It is an absolute pleasure to be able to bring you this content. Just as a reminder, it would be amazing if you would subscribe and share this episode with any other engineers you know who may benefit from this. And if you're like me, I hope that you'll take some notes and, more importantly, take action. In our audio version of the podcast on Apple Podcasts and any place that you go to find podcasts, there's a little more content from me about this episode in the debrief. If you really want to hear about how to put this into action, I'd encourage you to go grab that. But thank you for joining us for the video version of our interview today. And again, can't thank you enough for helping us to get the word out about the Happy Engineer podcast and what we're doing. If there's any way we can serve you, would love to do that. Go find us at oasisofcourage.com or reach out to me on social media at Oasis of Courage. And don't forget again to subscribe and click the bell to have notifications of upcoming releases of new episodes of the podcast. As always, I want to leave you with this. If you stay in your comfort zone, you're not going to grow. So let's crush comfort, create courage, and let's do this.